The reality regarding unidentified flying objects, UFOs, turns out to be far more terrifying than our fantasies suggest, which are merely a small part of the whole. This is confirmed by recently declassified documents in which the physicist Pavel Korneev reveals the true nature of UFOs and those whom we call extraterrestrial beings. Be vigilant. The information received is capable not only of shocking you, but also of completely changing your understanding of life. This narrative belongs to a person who, by virtue of his profession, adhered to staunch atheistic views and was distinguished by a strictly scientific approach. However, even he was shaken by what he witnessed and personally experienced. Pavel Korneev recounted the following: "I spent 100 days inside an object that is referred to in government reports as an unidentified flying object. Now I know for sure, reality is much more horrible than any theory." In the spring of 2021, I participated in a classified research project about which there is not a single official mention. The project involved studying an artifact retrieved from beneath the ice of Antarctica. It was created using technology unknown to humanity. The material did not yield to spectral analysis, and there were no engines inside. The most unusual thing was that it seemed alive. Every night, a quiet, vibrating hum, reminiscent of breathing, emanated from within. We could not understand the true essence of the UFO until the moment I once found myself inside. This happened when I approached it as closely as possible, simply to feel what it was, to sense it as an ordinary person. And then everything suddenly changed. The metal, if it could be called metal, seemed to breathe. It parted by itself, letting me in. It seemed to recognize not a physical body, but consciousness, scanning every thought and assessing my degree of trustworthiness. At that moment, time ceased to exist. The watch on my arm stopped, the hands froze, and the smartphone screen went blank. The signal was cut off, as if the earthly reality itself refused to accompany me. Inside, there was nothing familiar to human perception. No walls, no floor, no ceiling. The space breathed, moved, and changed shapes, as if I had found myself inside a living organism. I realized that this place was not just a room, but a living being, and it was watching. As soon as I thought of fear, everything around instantly plunged into darkness. The air thickened, sounds died down, and the space seemed to draw away, becoming cold and hostile. When I tried to find calm, recalling something bright, for example, my mother's face, the surrounding structures softened. Later I found out that this object reacts not to sounds or movements, but to the frequency of the emotional wave. This is conscious matter, and it is controlled by the state of the one inside it. It perceives not words, but the vibrations of the soul. Then I understood the reason why many do not return. This object is not merely a vehicle. It is a test where every fear turns into an obstacle. Every shadow becomes a tangible reality for you. If evil lurks within you, it takes physical form. If pain resides in you, it appears before you, takes on an appearance, and begins to speak. I did not sleep the first night, although the concept of day and night did not exist there. But I knew that the body required rest. How can one fall asleep when the walls echo your thoughts? I heard barely perceptible voices, not words, but intonations, as if someone was thoroughly studying my consciousness, layer by layer. After some time I realized that I was not alone there. Silhouettes began to appear in the walls, not physical, but rather mental projections, capable of taking a form that you could perceive without horror. Conversation as such was absent. Instead, thoughts arose in my consciousness, clear, cold, but clearly not mine. Their first message contained the following words: "Humanity represents material. Your species was specially created to perform an extremely important mission. We have been watching you from the very beginning." Then I was left alone again, but constantly felt someone's presence, which was not physical but rather emotional, like the invisible shadow of another mind. This entity had no outlines, but I felt that it was watching me without any hostility, only with dispassionate curiosity, like a scientist. When I tried to speak for the first time, I did not hear the sound of my own voice. Any attempt to speak loudly caused a piercing, ear-splitting noise. Then I decided to try to formulate thoughts with words. The entity responded. I realized that communication was possible, but only on the condition of absolute truthfulness. This entity does not accept falsity. Any insincerity immediately causes the structure to shut down. It goes out and pushes you away. Every day I learn to exist without masks, discarding the habitual forms of lies. Inside the unidentified flying object, it is impossible to pretend. It sees right through you. The longer I stayed there, the clearer I realized this object is a mirror of the human soul. These beings did not call themselves gods or extraterrestrial guests. They referred to themselves as, "We are the preceding ones." According to their explanation, human civilization is an element of their plan to restore a lost life form that was destroyed millions of years ago. We are merely carriers of consciousness, cultivated with one purpose: to preserve and transmit the memory of those who lost their physical shell. Everything we call progress, science, culture, this is merely a stage of maturation, a preparation for the return of those who once created us. They were not planning to seize the earth. It belonged to them from the very beginning. Then some more indefinite time passed, and I completely lost the ability to distinguish the passage of minutes. Every moment felt simultaneously like eternity and like nothing. I found myself unable to remember who I was. My name, age, and past had faded from memory. Everything seemed unimportant. In this place, the concept of individuality did not exist. There was only pure consciousness. I realized that this was a laboratory, but the object of research was myself. The entity controlling the space seemed to be studying the boundaries of human perception. Then, on one of the days, the space transformed, and I found myself inside a gigantic hemisphere, filled with flowing light. It penetrated through the skin, leaving no trace, but changing something inside. Voices sounded in my head. They did not utter words, but their meaning was clear to me. This was the language of pure perception. "You are the observed and the observer simultaneously," one of them pronounced. "There are no barriers here between the one who studies and the one who is studied. Everything you perceive as external is a reflection of your internal." I realized that the apparatus does not simply react to emotions, it models them. It creates situations to understand how human consciousness chooses between light and darkness. Suddenly, the surrounding space began to pulsate. I felt my own fear taking shape. Something created from smoke and shadow arose before me. Its outlines were mine. I realized that I was seeing the materialized projection of my own darkness. Everything I concealed came alive and appeared before me. It did not attack, it simply stood and watched. I looked directly at it and realized it was not an enemy, but the part of me that I had rejected. When I accepted this, the entity slowly dissipated, leaving behind a strange feeling of liberation. After this, the space changed again. The light became soft, almost golden. I heard a pulsation, similar to a heartbeat, but not my own. And then I realized I was inside a living organism. This ship is not a mechanism, it is a form of life. I was shown images directly into my consciousness, gigantic cities that existed before the beginning of our history, people standing next to these beings without experiencing fear. Communication between us was carried out directly, from mind to mind. I realized that I was not the first to be inside. Every generation of people, upon reaching a certain level of development, went through this contact, but only few could withstand it. Most lost their minds because they faced a truth for which humanity was not ready. At one moment, I saw the earth, but not the way I knew it. The surface was scorched, cities had disappeared, beings resembling people wandered among the ashes. I lived through their pain, and a voice pronounced, "This is the path your civilization is headed toward. You create that which will destroy you, but you are capable of changing this outcome if you realize that consciousness is primary." I did not know what it was, but I understood. Contact with them is a matter of consciousness. They appear when humanity stands on the brink of survival to remind the world is not outside, it is within us. Approximately halfway through my stay, I noticed that the inner space was becoming unstable. Every time I thought about Earth, a sharp metallic clang sounded inside, warning me not to return. On one of the days, they showed me a map composed not of stars, but of points of consciousness. Earth appeared as a pattern of glowing spheres. The beings stated, "This is a network. You are all connected. Each of you is a part of us." At that instant, I understood that the observation of humanity is conducted not from the outside, but from within ourselves. Then, on the 100th day of my stay, I was released. The light around went out, the walls became transparent. When the whole space was filled with a pure white glow, I found myself on Earth again. I woke up in a hospital on a military base. Not one device was able to record exactly where I had been. Officially, I was simply listed as missing for 3 months. My notes and equipment were seized. I was forbidden to speak about this publicly, but I swore to myself that one day I would tell people the whole truth. The main conclusion I drew is the following. Unidentified flying objects are not technology and not spaceships. They are minds that dwell in layers of reality inaccessible to human perception. What governments call anomalies is actually a test of our readiness for full interaction with them. The appearance of UFOs is often accompanied by bursts of mass panic in thousands of people. This is a method of interaction through the collective subconscious. We still cannot pass this exam. People are too fearful and aggressive. My experience is not unique. In the 60s of the last century, an international program was launched under the code name Silent Mirror. Its goal was to conceal evidence of direct contact and block the memories of eyewitnesses. Many who claimed to have been abducted were actually participants in memory-wiping experiments. Approximately 3% of the Earth's population have been subjected to direct mental contact at least one time, but only units realize it. People are indeed taken and placed in other levels of perception where time does not flow. Their consciousness is studied, and then they are returned but already changed. The last thing I heard was a statement of fact. They told me, "We are not adversaries, we are simply returning." Since then, I often have dreams where the sky breaks open into thousands of lights, and soft, silvery light pours from each one. Perhaps it is then that humanity will realize that the invasion occurred long ago. It happened inside us. Since that time, I continue to notice how the sky becomes unusually quiet at night, and technology seems to be listening. Every time you feel that someone is watching you, perhaps it is not paranoia. They already reside in our thoughts. When I left the object, I quickly realized that I had not returned completely. The first weeks after my return were unbearable. I could not sleep. When I closed my eyes, the space began to pulsate, as if there was another layer of reality. One night I woke up to find that the walls of the room seemed to be breathing, not physically, but energetically. After several days, I discovered that I was able to feel the emotions of other people. I felt not thoughts, but specifically an emotional state. If a person nearby felt fear, I felt cold on my skin. After the passing of 1 month, I decided to undergo a medical examination. Magnetic resonance tomography showed anomalous formations in the frontal lobes of my brain, structures that should not have been there. Doctors dismissed this as scanning artifacts, but I was certain it was a mark. When I tried to discuss this with colleagues, 3 of them had disappeared. 2 had suddenly changed their place of residence. Officially, the project was closed, and all data was destroyed. Then I realized that those who return no longer belong to themselves. 40 days after my return, I heard a sound that can only be described as an internal signal. You were a conductor, now you are part of the system. I began to notice people around me with the same deep gaze, as if they were looking through the familiar world. Some of them also went through contact. We simply recognized each other. I also became aware that the world seemed to be split into 2 levels. 1, the familiar, and the second, the deep energetic one. In it, everything vibrates as if alive. The silver outline on the horizon is the boundary between the worlds. It is from there that they observe us, not from the sky, but from a layer of parallel reality. UFOs do not fly in, they emerge from this thin interlayer. In 2022, I managed to find 2 people who had experienced a similar event. One, an electronics engineer, claimed that after contact he could hear radio signals without a receiver. The other, a former military man, said that his DNA had changed, with analyses showing unusual sequences. All agreed, the feeling of the presence never disappears. It intensifies near thunderstorms and during sleep. Those who have been inside the object experience similar states: strong flashes of light, loss of the sense of time, sudden rushes of heat or cold, and the most frightening periods of absence of self. This happens when you look at your hands and do not feel that they belong to you. You speak, but do not recognize your own voice, as if you are a receiver and someone else is broadcasting through you. In 2023, I began to notice that I was being followed. A military acquaintance informed me that everyone who had contact with UFOs is under government surveillance. And last year, on one summer night, I woke up to find that the room was flooded with the same silvery light. A phrase resonated in my consciousness: "You must tell about what happened to you." We are not enemies. We observe, we conduct experiments, but not for the sake of destruction, but for the quantum transition of all humanity. After this incident, my fear disappeared. I developed a feeling that I had become a conductor of information. The connection grows stronger with each passing day. They are observing humanity to study the moment when human consciousness can exit the body and connect with their field. We are reaching parity with their vibrational rate. I am certain that the quantum moment of open contact is nearly upon us. When the Earth's resonance aligns with their frequency, our reality will divide along energetic lines. We will perceive them, not as invaders, but as an ultimate representation of our own being.